this is not about accessibility. This is about shiluv, inclusion in rental housing. So what we're doing is something called deeply affordable rental apartments. It's a partnership with the state and the Weinberg Foundation. This is the goal, okay, to increase the quantity and affordability of integrated, supportive, permanent rental apartments for non-elderly persons with disabilities who live on SSI. SSI, I think, I hope I get this right, is your kitzbah, I think. Social Security disabilities is insurance if you hurt yourself at work and you acquire a disability. Housing is unaffordable in Maryland, very expensive. Maryland is one of the 3 most expensive housing markets in the United States. New York, Maryland, Honolulu, Hawaii, Tel Aviv, from what I see on commercials. Maryland cannot provide rental housing for the poorest of the poor. The poorest of the poor are people with disabilities who are on the SSI, and most cannot work. And we want them integrated, meaning to have a house in the community, not in a Mossad, not in a hostel. We use low-income housing tax credits. Low-income housing tax credits, complicated, I won't explain it, but they set the rents at 60% of the area median income. That's much too expensive for a person living off of the kitzbah in the United States. So, if you have SSI in the US, your income is $8,000. Okay? We are trying to build apartments, new apartments, that the rent will be $230 a month. Okay? So you can have your own one-bedroom apartment and spend $230 a month, which is 30% of your gross monthly income. In Baltimore, the monthly payment is $637. The cost, the rental on a one-bedroom apartment would use up 136%. That's impossible, okay? So if rent is $1,300 a month and you're earning $8,000 a year, you're homeless. Or they put you in a nursing home in America. And if you're 23 and had a car accident, but your mind is fine, you're tetraplegic, you can't speak, you don't belong in a nursing home with 80-year-old people. Next, this is the partnership. Federal government low-income housing tax credits, the State Department of Housing, the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, that's disabilities, and Keren Weinberg. In your country, I think I have this right, Bituach Leumi gives award to a municipality or an amotah for part of the building or the equipment. We don't have that in the United States. Your system's much better, even though they take too long to make a decision. In the United States, for-profit companies can get a reduction in their taxes if they give money to create low-income housing. Very complicated. I don't recommend this system in Israel. If you look at a budget, 1/3 of the cost of the house goes to lawyers and syndicators. The system has no accountability, awash in cash. Don't ever do it. But this is what we do in the United States. We give a grant to finance the construction of a new building. Let's say $1 million we give on a $10 million project. We then ask the owner to set aside 12 new one-bedroom apartments. So if there are 100 units in a building, at least 10% must be for people with disabilities. So inclusion for the Weinberg Foundation means 90 units for people without disabilities, 10 units for people with disabilities. The owner promises a 30-year life of the apartment, and the owner promises to keep the rent at 15% of the area median income. So a foundation's grant is like a rental subsidy and enables these people with disabilities to afford their own rental apartment, about $200 a month. How can the developer do that? The developer takes a smaller mashkanta, is that right? Mortgage, because of our gift of $1 million. Here are some examples of 3 projects. You look at the number of apartments, Weinberg apartments with disability. This is the loss, the money that the builder loses. You see, he loses $7,000. The building has to cash flow, or the building won't stay open. This is the reduction in the project's budget. The owner loses $71,000 in a year for just 2 apartments at low rent. So we have to make up that loss with a grant. And what we've discovered is the amount of money it costs to build one apartment is pretty much equivalent to keeping that apartment affordable for 30 years. So if it costs $100,000 in a community to build a one-bedroom apartment, that's how much you have to have as a rental subsidy to keep it affordable for 30 years. And that's what we do, by giving the money up front. Now, how does someone live in an apartment like that? How do you afford it? It's a three-legged stool. One is the tenant pays rent from his SSI, $230 a month. Two, the rental subsidy or the grant from a foundation. Three, because U.S. housing is, I hope I have this right, a la panim, it means you can buy houses cheap now. You can build cheap now. So you need those three things, or people with disabilities will never be able to have their own apartments in expensive places like Tel Aviv, Maryland, Honolulu. Then we get food stamps, energy assistance, free utilities in the United States, a free cell phone, you get a pocket computer, and all of the apartments are accessible. I put that in because she told me by email. Okay, universal design. Next, we try to pick people who are in institutions, in nursing homes. People who shouldn't be in institutions, we try to bring them into these apartments. They are referred by the state, and I check each person, okay? And I go to visit them. In Maryland, the money follows the person, okay? The money doesn't go to an amutah. The money goes to the person, not to the family. And that person can decide. If the person cannot decide, a committee is appointed, and the person buys services. The services are taken to the apartment, even a nurse, even 24/7. It's called person-centered programs. That's the only way it works. Okay, we also fund the case managers who visit the people in the apartments, and we fund $1,000 for each person when they get into the apartment. Maybe they need a new bed or some changes in the apartment. So they get case manager, they get an apartment, they get $1,000, and then I go to visit them, and it's a lot of fun. Some of them get employment in the building. They get to paint for 2 hours a week, and they make $50, and that helps. It does. All we ask is they pay their rent on time, keep the place clean, be nice to neighbors. It's the same rules I have to follow. I rent. Here are the challenges, the problems. Will the developer keep their promise? Will these apartments stay cheap for 30 years at $230, or will they raise the rent to $630? Well, the penalty is the federal and the state government can ban them from ever getting any more money, and they'll never get money from Weinberg again. So we hope it doesn't happen. Will we get tenants in the greatest need? Will we get people with the most extreme disabilities who are in institutions? I don't know. We're trying. Will the tenants abide by the rules? When you take 20-year-old kids with disabilities into an apartment, and they've been in a nursing home or they've been in their parents, well, what these young boys and girls want is they want to drink, they want to date, they want to have relationships, they want to smoke marijuana. I don't blame them. But they can't in these apartments, so I'm worried they might be kicked out. That's the other problem. Will owners have apartments that are vacant? How long will the state take before they pick someone from a nursing home into a Weinberg apartment? We've had delays. Next, will we get all disabilities? Sensory, physical, intellectual, and also mental health, by the way. Weinberg views mental health, psychiatric, as a disability. In Maryland, the smallest group home, what you call a hostel, in Maryland, by law, you can't have more than 3 people in a group home. Our goal, and what I'm doing here now in conclusion, is defining that. Someone said, is that Yoav? Right? 3 people, imagine that. The goal is for people to go where they want to live. They either want to live alone or they want to live with somebody, and then the supports come to the people. Some places have a second bedroom for the person who takes care of them. I've seen this in the model in Jerusalem called Shalhevet, and we hope they build another building, and I hope Weinberg helps them. You're welcome, Miriam. Next is the group homes that I have seen in Israel, Amichai, Shekel. They're nice, and your food is always delicious. You got the best food of any homes in the world. But why do you have to have 6 strangers living together? Because the ministry says so, I guess. We won't fund those places anymore in Israel. Weinberg has now decided to focus on rental apartments. We're either going to build new ones, or we're going to give money to the person with disabilities and say, here's 3 months rent free. Now can you somehow come out with a budget? Can we help you? We believe in 2 words, choice and control. It took me 6 years to get the Weinberg trustees to understand the point of choice and control. You choose where you want to live. You choose with whom you want to live. You choose who gives you the sherut. You can have vouchers. And the Amutah just screens the staff, make sure they're not criminals. And this is the formula that I like, even for those with, how do you say, CUD? Severe disabilities. CUD. Even people who are very severe disabled, your own room, your own door, your own lease, your own key. You choose your own roommate, just like the way I live. We want to integrate people who are not disabled with people with disabilities as much as possible. In the building, 90 units for low-income people without disabilities, policemen, teachers. But even in the bedroom, we like to find a person with mental illness who wants to live with someone who's fine. But that person may be broke, homeless, had medical problems, divorced. Why can't they be roommates? Best of all is to stay with family as long as possible. As you know, in Israel, and as we do, most people are with family, but parents die. Siblings don't keep their promise. They're appointed guardians, and they don't keep their promise. We even fund a program of weekends at a motel. This is my favorite. We take people out of high school, they're 21, and they're not sure. They want to leave home. They want to get rid of mom and dad, but they're not sure about roommates. We take the people they think they want to live with, and we put them in a motel for a weekend, and they can practice living together, and they can bring in their aides to the motel, and they fight and they throw stuff at each other. But I love it, because mom and dad has to let go, and then you pick the roommate. It's called Sweets Motel in the United States. You rent it for 3 days. There is legislation coming up in the United States that will expand this program, exactly what Weinberg is doing, Obama wants to do. I know he's not your friend, but he is the friend of people with disabilities. He wants to create 50,000 new permanent supportive housing opportunities within 5 years. I don't know if it'll work. The criticism of this program, a person in an apartment, is b'didut, loneliness. And what we know in the United States, all of you know, is that loneliness kills. If you don't have a friend, if you don't have somebody to love, and you think you're going to be a tough individual, in about 5 years, you'll be sick mentally, I promise you. This is a picture of what we build. We give about 10% as a grant. They're not as nice as your places. You guys build with Evan and Schuchit, right? And you build beautiful villas. We don't in America. We build wood, like toothpicks. But they're nice. They're not that bad. Do you see? There are about 100 units in this. Here's another one. It's not fancy, but it's your own place. I could live there. This is the lobby of one of the places. There is a mali, don't worry. And you see the fish? I like fish. Hatachpiv sheli legadel dagei yam. Did I say that right? So, I always have, every building has to do something with fish. Every building has a fish tank. And one day my bosses, they said, Stan, we spend millions of dollars. How come there's a fish tank in every building? And I go, I don't know. But kids like fish tanks when they visit. This is a bedroom. You see the heater on the wall? I stole that from Israelis. That's your idea. That's where you put your chimum, right? I love that. That's on the top. You see the bed is low. It's open floor. There are no walls. The sink is not accessible to someone on a wheelchair. It's too high. We make mistakes. But that's okay. That's the whole apartment. It's small, but it's $230 a month. Okay? In Colombia, 30 minutes from Obama and all the people who sit in high places. And you can have an apartment. That's it. Thank you very, very much for listening.